I've always been very results oriented. And for myself personally, I've often equated my own worth to productivity. But I think this has been over the last couple of years, it's been a really important reminder that, in order to drive results, you really have to take care of your people.
Hi, I am Sophie Vaux, and this is the Rise and Play podcast. In the show, I sit down with influential thought leaders of the gaming industry to deconstruct how they create the best team and company cultures in order to create the best games. Every episode brings actionable insight to improve your leadership, self-awareness, and emotional management skills. Because becoming a better leader starts with becoming a better human. So, are you ready to unlock your full potential in life and business? Let's begin.
This episode has been brought to you by our sponsor, Appadeal, an all-in-one growth platform for mobile app creators of any size. While you have probably heard about Appadeal as a mediation solution, it has already expanded into much more than that. Appadeal unlocks access to a new generation of advanced business intelligence tools, including LTV forecasting, user acquisition and creative automation, and of course, the mediation platform that can work out of the box or be managed manually. Being one of the very few independent platforms left in the market, Appadeal delivers unbiased solutions for mobile app creators to establish and scale their businesses rapidly. Sign up at appadeal.com.
So today I'm very excited to have Vanessa with me and sitting down with her. Before we start, a little bit more about Vanessa. So Vanessa Rouhani is the Senior Vice President of Publishing at leading mobile entertainment studio Jam City. In this position, she is responsible for managing best-in-class relationships with key platform partners and leading brand strategy and product marketing across Jam City's portfolio of games. Prior to joining Jam City, Vanessa served on the mobile publishing team at global video game publisher Electronic Arts. She contributed to a successful launch, highly rated original and licensed games such as Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes and The Simpsons Tapped Out and FIFA. So hi, Vanessa. How are you today?
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great.
So let's start also with a question of what energizes us. So what is energizing you, and what is exciting for you these days in your life?
Personally, I'm actually working on my most exciting accomplishment, which is that I'm making a human. I just turned 40 2 weeks ago, and I'm 7 months pregnant with my first child. So that is what is energizing me these days, or rather maybe draining me a bit.
Congratulations. How does it feel for you going forward? How are you preparing the work with your position and responsibilities?
This has definitely been an adjustment for me because I've spent probably a large portion of my career really prioritizing work and not my personal life. And I think what you discover with pregnancy is that even if your mind doesn't want to slow down, your body forces you to. Mm-hmm. So I remember when I was in my first trimester, not a lot of people knew that I was pregnant, especially not at work. I was suffering from really, really horrible morning sickness. I was very tired. And I had kind of committed myself to flying to San Francisco for GDC. And I remember just having so much anxiety leading up to it, thinking, how am I going to get on this plane? How am I going to get on this plane? And the morning of, I decided to back out. And I listened to my body and I canceled my flight and I let my team know. And it was the best decision that I've ever made because I just really wasn't at a place at that point where I was able to. But it's definitely, I think, an adjustment because as women, I think we often feel like we have to power through. So I think, there's a lot of pressure that we put sometimes often on ourselves to push through. And really your body tells you that it's not possible, which is a shift.
I am pretty sure that is quite a change as well, where physically, like you have mentioned, you are forced and then the mind comes like, can I really do this?
Yeah.
I'm curious as well as you come to the point where you had to share with your team. What was, how were you feeling before you had to share, or how did this happen? How did this conversation go?
I think most of my team, everybody actually was super supportive and excited for me. I think because I've waited so late in life to have children, but everybody was very supportive. And thankfully, I knew that I had sort of a good team that I could lean on throughout the journey. So that was super, super helpful. And I think, one of the things that I mentioned, that I struggled a little bit with was like this self-imposed pressure to keep kind of pushing through, I watched a really amazing documentary, Expecting Amy with Amy Schumer. And that was really, really eye-opening for me because it kind of chronicles her journey. And she had a very, very challenging pregnancy. And she was still trying to do her like stand-up tour and record her Netflix special or HBO special. And it made you realize like, oh, we need to actually tell ourselves to slow down a little bit and allow ourselves to kind of go through this process because you're creating something from scratch. You're creating a human from scratch. So naturally your body needs a little bit of time and grace to get there.
And part of the adjustment as well. So how do you see your return to work? Have you thought about it? What's your approach to this as you are also quite close, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I actually just sat down and started planning out my leave, which, is for every country is very different. In the US, I think it's complex, right? There's a lot of like planning that has to go into how you submit for that leave. So I'm trying to kind of like wrap my head around all of that. But I would say, the thing that I think is challenging is, there's a lot of feelings that come up when you wrap your head around the idea of taking several months off of your career. I've worked pretty much nonstop since I was 18 years old. So I don't know anything other than working. So the idea of stepping away for several months at a time, it brings up, feelings of guilt because I feel like, oh no, I'm putting so much pressure on my team where they're going to have to carry the load for me. There's a lot of anxiety that comes up. Like if I'm not there, what's going to happen or how difficult is it going to be for me to come back to work? In those moments that I have, those sort of feelings come up, I think I have to remind myself, first of all, I'm not the first woman to get pregnant and go on mat leave. And that there's always something going on in your company, no matter what time of the year it is. And so there's really never a good time and we just all get through it. Right. And so, yeah, it's been interesting. I'm excited for it because I think, again, as I mentioned, I haven't prioritized my personal life over my work life really throughout my entire career. And this is the first time that I'm going to be doing that. And so I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be definitely a different change of pace to wake up and not get on Zoom or not look at my calendar for a bit and have different challenges.
And if I may ask as well, how did you feel as well as the work environment? Because this is a reality in some places, as I heard also other testimonials, that it didn't always feel supported. And it's coming from actual facts that there's a concern of having their place or responsibilities when they return.
Yeah.
How is Jam City approaching it? And maybe can you give more visibility to it?
Yeah, one of the things that actually drew me to Jam City when I first joined 6 years ago was that the leadership, I could really see that they embraced work-life balance and that they are family people. Our CEO and our COO, they're very, very, family oriented. Every spring break they take off, doesn't matter what's going on, in the company. They're there with their families. And so I think that was a really good indicator for me that from a value standpoint, that we had alignment there. And so I feel very supported in that manner. I think obviously the nice part about sort of what's happened over the last couple of years with work from home is there's a lot more flexibility now. I have friends who had children throughout COVID. And even when they were returning back from maternity leave, their kids were still at home. They had a nanny there that was obviously watching them, but they had the opportunity to see these like special milestones that they might have missed had they had to go back to an actual office. And so that I think is something that I'm really looking forward to because I realize that's not something that people, had 5-10 years ago, the opportunity to do. I might actually get to see first steps or, hear first words or things that, again, might have been heard by, somebody in the daycare or a nanny versus myself.
So then let's get more into also the position that you have at Gem City. So I'm also curious as well as such a high executive level. So as a senior VP and on publishing and product marketing, what is your role and mission? How are you organized with teams? And, what is the difference of high level work and operations you have with this role?
Yeah, so I oversee our publishing team. Really, our main focus is making sure that we can find new ways to bring our players into our game while engaging our existing players. And so some of that's through co-marketing opportunities, some of that's through optimizing our storefront creative, and some of it's through 360 marketing campaigns, brand partnerships, celebrity and social campaigns. So we're constantly working very closely with our product team to understand what's the product roadmap and how can we look for opportunities to bring more people into the game while engaging our existing ones. So we have a team of about 20 folks who are responsible for those kind of key areas. So partnerships, product marketing, social, and app store optimization kind of all live within our team. And so we work really, really closely. We kind of are a hub and spoke in a lot of ways because we're working with a lot of our internal development teams, but then we're also working externally with all of our partners, whether it's Apple or Google or our licensed partners like Disney and WB. So we're really the ones who are kind of interfacing with all of those various different teams and partners throughout our game development process.
It's a lot of responsibilities, under the same umbrella. And so I wonder as well, in terms of focus and priorities for you, what are you really handling? Like, is it really on the team level or are you also doing the strategy?
Yeah, so I am grateful that I have really amazing leaders that are underneath me that are driving a lot of the strategy for the individual disciplines. So whether it's, looking at what new channels we want to go after from a marketing perspective or what campaigns or celebrities make the most sense. For me, definitely looking at, okay, what are some larger macro trends that we're seeing? Where are we seeing certain challenges that we need to lean in more? If we're seeing, certain games that are, struggling a little bit, or there's sort of a new platform that we want to take advantage of. TikTok is one that everybody right now is trying to figure out kind of how we tackle TikTok from a bunch of different angles, and so. Working on sort of the strategy that kind of touches across the entire umbrella of what we do, but also a large part of what I do is really around the people and making sure that I'm able to be sort of a leader to the team underneath me, keeping them motivated, obviously keeping them focused on the biggest priorities that are going to move the needle. So that's a large part of what I focus on.
And so focusing here on the people part, what's your approach to team and organization and the things that really you care about in your leadership style?
Yeah, absolutely. So my team is not all based in one location, but we are very tight knit. And I think that that's, always something that has been very, very important to me is, relationships are so key, whether it's, relationships with your own team or relationships with people that you're working with, internally or externally. And so although we're not all in one location, I think everybody does a really phenomenal job of supporting one another and pitching in where they can. I think as I look at myself as a leader and sort of the things that are most important to me, I think there's a couple of values in particular that really, really resonate with me. One is empathy. I think this is very, very important for me, especially because I want to create an environment where people feel safe and that whether it's my team or colleagues, they feel like they can come to me, discuss challenges that they're having or share their unique perspectives, even if they're maybe not the common or shared perspective. That's really, really important. And understanding where everybody is at, not only, in their professional life, but also in their personal life. And that's something that has come up a lot more, throughout the last couple of years as people are facing more challenges in their personal lives that, sort of tends to affect, work. The other one is passion. I think passion is super important. It's so contagious, whether we're looking to hire somebody or sort of looking to bring somebody onto our team. It's really important for me to find folks who are passionate about what they do, because it can be incredibly unmotivating, and you can see when somebody is not passionate, and you feed off that energy, so that's really, really super important. And I try to, embody that as well. I really love what I do, and I hope that comes through in everything that I touch. Another one is humility. I think this is really important, especially as leaders, because we don't always make the right decisions. In fact, sometimes we make them, more often than not. And I think it's really important for us to be able to own up to that and recognize that we don't always make the right choices, but creating a space where people feel like they can be accountable for both their wins and maybe their misses. I think it just creates a lot more honesty and trust with the team. And then the last one is transparency. So this one is also something that I feel is really important. In order for us to build trust with our teams, we really have to be able to be honest with them about what's working, what's not working. And I find that even though it's not always possible to give, all the info, I think when you leave people in the dark, it really impacts their ability to make sound decisions. And so I want to make sure that as people are going out and making choices that affect our business, that they do so with all of the facts. And so I think that's another one that's really important to me.
It seems you have very clear vision and also how you verbalize the values. Like you've been really internalizing them, I'm pretty sure, for some years. So it's great to hear in such a clear way and concise way how you talk about them. And let's get back to some of them, because I'm curious as well more in the practice of those values. So what part about, like you mentioned, about empathy and also caring about the people, not just on a work level, but personal.
Yeah.
How do you create those connections and even have a sense of what's happening in their lives? I don't know if you use tools or even with the remote, how do you create those connections?
I check in with not only my direct reports, but really everybody on my team on a fairly regular basis. I think communication is really key. Obviously, I think, the last couple of years have been probably the most challenging when it comes to, my career and what I think, leaders have faced, leading teams through COVID and work from home and a lot of, uncertainty and mental health, social unrest, like changes to our business. It really sort of forced me to take a step back and reflect a little bit on the type of leader that I wanted to be. I've always been very results oriented. And for myself personally, I've often equated like my own worth to, productivity. But I think this has been, over the last couple of years, it's been a really important reminder that, in order to drive results, you really have to take care of your people. And so recognizing that everyone's going through different struggles, whether it was childcare or anxiety or burnout, being there to listen to people and realize that, as hectic as our days can be, it's really important to take care of yourself first and giving people the space to do so. And sometimes I have to force people, tell them to take time off because, it's really important for them to be able to step away. I think, our work and our personal lives, the lines have blurred a lot because of work from home, and people, I think, have to force themselves to shut down for the day. And I have a lot of type A people on my team, so it's very, very difficult to sometimes to get them to step away, but it's so important. And so I think just being there to listen to people, trying to pick up on, signs that maybe they're not verbally telling you what's going on, but you can, physically see that they're not, that they're struggling. I think those are really important things for leaders to do, and make sure that you're just constantly checking in on folks.
Yeah, and it's a great example as well that you shared about this evolution that you've had, which I can relate to, where maybe before the whole lockdown, working from home, we didn't see those things in this way, so emphasized and amplified. But this focus on productivity that define you, and then being able, and I think that's quality also of leaders, like to adapt and see, okay, the needs are different now. And I see like different problems or priorities for people, and needing to adapt your style and focus and not just be, on the productive or result oriented only.
I think that the thing that I really enjoy about work from home is that we actually are getting snapshots into people's lives. I love being able to see, kids running behind people or, or dogs or, whatever life distractions sort of happen. I think we're getting to see our colleagues in different lights and seeing that, like, even though we can all be, super productive and really great at what we do, life is happening all around us, and that didn't stop and won't stop. It will continue to happen.
Yeah, totally. And another one which I found interesting and so challenging is the transparency as a value, and being, as transparent to also give the right insights, information timely to people so they can make the best decisions. What's your approach to this, especially again, when you are working remotely? What are the things that you found the most effective when it comes to be transparent and sharing information?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and I really encourage all of my team to understand our business. I think it's really important, no matter what level that you're at, that you're taking a look at the numbers, that you're seeing how things are pacing, because that knowledge is really powerful. And so I think that's been just something that I really encourage my team to do is look at how we're performing, look at the trends, look at our competitors, look at the market. Like, these are all things that are really important insights for you to have as you're making decisions as it relates to your own business. I think if you're just looking solely at what your own contributions are or what your own projects are, you're kind of missing the bigger picture, which is so important to understand sort of, the current landscape and how you can be most effective in your role.
Very, very nice. And I remember as well with those, like sometimes we think it's sensitive to share too much or, data and own it as a knowledge, but actually it's doing the opposite effect where actually you empower people with this information. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really enjoy that about Jam City, because we've often operated coming from a very big company like EA and then coming to Jam City. It was very different in terms of, what was shared. And I think that people can just do better work when they know, how the business is performing and how their own games are performing. That's super, super critical for folks to understand.
And so you were mentioning as well about EA, where you worked also for quite some time, and I think growing then your career more into like brand marketing and publishing. Can you walk us through as well through your time at EA? What were you doing, and how did this transition happen to Jam City after?
Yeah, so I had a really unconventional career path. I started as an executive assistant working for a company that was eventually acquired by EA, a mobile gaming company many years ago. And I was very fortunate, after several years of being in that role, where, one of our leaders had said, I really see a lot of potential in you and want to move you into my marketing organization. But because my path was a little bit atypical, I spent a large part of my early years in my career struggling with imposter syndrome, because I was like, what am I doing in this role? How did I get here? I don't know what I'm doing. Does everybody else know what they're doing and I don't? And so, I have a really, really deep sense of gratitude for those who mentored me throughout my career, because they really helped me build confidence to know I wasn't handed anything. I worked hard. I really, really tried to learn and understand the business and see how I could even apply, some of the skills that I had as an executive assistant to what I was doing, later in life when it came to, managing partnerships or campaigns that I was running. So I think that was my time there, I think was really, really, really helpful, because it built a lot of the foundation that I was ultimately able to take as I transitioned into my role at Jam City.
It's a great, actually, story and journey, like starting as on a role executive assistant and not necessarily related to games or anything, and how you learn and made your path. I'm curious as well, then at that time, what this other leader in marketing who offered you the job or promotion saw in you, but that you couldn't see in yourself?
Yeah, I think it was probably like my determination that probably was something that I didn't necessarily see. I just thought, this is my job. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But I think that was something that probably made them realize there was probably a little more opportunity for me.
And is there something where you can track back in your, education or childhood that has always made you determined, or is something that has developed over time for you?
I think, I have an amazing mother who's very strong-willed. And so I think I've always seen her determination. And that's been a big driver for me, right? Because I've been able to have that sort of modeled to me from a very young age.
Always, I think somewhere we have our role models, either as parents or someone close. So I'm always curious, what shapes people. And then going back then to your time at EA, so as you grow as well in your career there, what happened then? Okay, after fast forward 12 years, where you felt, okay, it's time maybe to move or go somewhere? What happened? What was the thought process?
Yeah, so I was approached with the opportunity to come
Mm-hmm.
to Jam City, and I think a large part of that was, the idea of being able to build something from scratch. So I've always loved that about, about my sort of career and my path. When I was at EA, one of the things that I was working on was Android in the very early days of Android, and I loved sort of being able to build that business from scratch with my team. And so when I saw this opportunity at Jam City, it was to build out their entire publishing
Mm-hmm.
organization. And so, although that was something that was definitely pushing me outside of my comfort zone, I realized that that was, something that I needed to do for me to be able to continue to grow as a professional. And so I took that leap of faith 6 years ago, and I'm so happy that I did. It's not that I didn't love my time at EA and get so much from that. But I've really, really been able to learn and grow so much in my role here. And not only just, as I've taken on different sort of responsibilities that have kind of fallen underneath me, but also from a leadership perspective. And that's something that I've, been really happy to be able to do here.
And as you mentioned, like you learn so many things from different phases of career and also based on the organization you're in. So you mentioned, of course, what you've learned, like with this new venture building a whole new department at Jam City. And 12 years is quite a long time at EA.
Yeah.
So is there something like now looking back that you're really grateful of what you've learned, whether it was positive or negative, like something, a challenge, like the things that were very specific to EA?
Yeah, I think, when I look at the things that I've learned along the way, one is definitely, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I think that's really, really important. We can all get very comfortable in what we're doing, but you're not learning and growing if you're never kind
Mm-hmm.
of expanding outside of that. In fact, I think, one of the really amazing pieces of advice that I was given at some point by a friend was every role that they've taken has been something new. And so
Wow.
if you're just going to take on a new role and do the same thing, you're not learning and growing. And I thought that was really interesting because something that I think women in general probably struggle with a little bit more when they're looking for new jobs or new roles is looking at a job description and seeing, okay, you know, I can do most of this, but there's this one thing that I've never done before. And so I shouldn't apply for this job because I don't know what I'm not qualified for it. And so I think hearing that and saying like, oh, you know what, it's not about what you've done before, but it's about how you want to expand your role and what you want to learn next. And so I thought that was really great advice. And it definitely, of course, pushes you out of your comfort zone when you think like that. And I think the other one is probably learning to delegate. So as an individual contributor and one, that again, very, very much sort of is focused on productivity. As you grow in your career and you build a team underneath you, it's really important to be able to delegate not only for your own sanity, but also to empower your team. And so that's been something that has been really important for me to learn, to really be able to let my team, make their own decisions and really give them the autonomy and empower them to be able to own projects from start to finish. I try to be there to support them as they're making those decisions, but I really want them to feel that they have the opportunity to make those choices themselves. And so delegation is super key. And it's difficult, I think, for type A folks to learn how to
Mhm.
delegate. But
Mhm.
once you do, there's this moment where you're like, okay, go for it. Take it all, go for it, which I really embrace.
And I really like also the other key learning that you shared about going out of your comfort zone and going for positions or roles that may look at first very unfamiliar, right? Because at the end of the day, this is what gives you energy, keep growing, and you stay sharp, especially for, I think, our type where I can recognize as well when you say type A,
Yeah,
you want to stay always like, a sharp mind and learn things. And having an organization, so I think that's also one of the benefits of EA, like so big that you can
yeah.
really rotate in different departments and roles. Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was in several different teams while I was there at EA. So I got the opportunity to have, exposure to different parts of the business. I think, what I really enjoy about, Jam City and something that was very different than EA is that, although we're not small by any means, we're smaller than EA for sure. But I think we are a very, very collaborative company. And even as we've grown, we've continued to maintain that same, that same mentality. And I think it's been really helpful for me because I have exposure to all parts of the business that I didn't have before. So I remember when I was at EA, our user acquisition team was, at our headquarters, and we didn't get a lot of visibility into how much, they were doing. We just kind of got like the high level of, we're spending this on these channels and these geos, and that was it. But being at Jam City, I have exposure to exactly what we're doing on the paid media side. And I think that's really been helpful for me because it's given me the insight to be able to have a lot more of a well-rounded understanding of our business, because I'm able to intimately understand a lot more of what goes into all of the parts that make up the sum of the business.
So something also I would like to talk about, not related to your career, but more also side activities where you've been involved. It's about the network called Chief as a women's leadership network. Could you tell more about it and how you've been involved in this network?
Yeah, so I joined Chief about 2.5 years ago. Actually, Jam City was the one who brought it to my attention and gave it to me as an opportunity. It's been a really amazing resource for me personally, especially over the last few years when it's been just a lot more challenging for women in leadership roles. And so essentially it's, as part of the membership, one of the things that I find to be most valuable is you get matched with a group of women that are from different industries, but you're kind of all based in the same location. So we have right now a group of, I believe around 8 of us that are based in LA, and we meet monthly. And so as part of that, we have a coach that joins and sort of will help guide us if there's different topics that we want to discuss, or, if we want to just have sort of more ad hoc conversations. But it's really been helpful in, being able to hear different perspectives of how, other females have approached challenges in the workplace or challenges, in their personal lives. Lots of mentorship, really amazing networking. I am constantly, reaching out to these folks, when I know somebody is looking for a job, and, I'm able to kind of bounce them off of that network. They also have really amazing speakers. They've got a speaker series. I don't know the cadence of them, but they're fairly often. They've had Michelle Obama. They've had some really, really remarkable speakers that come and talk about their journey. And so that's been really helpful. And then they have local meetups. So they have, in certain cities, they actually have a clubhouse where you can go and work out of. So they've got one in West Hollywood that we've met up for. So it's a really, really great network, and I think a great resource for any female leader. I think they've continued to expand. I don't know if they're international yet, but they're definitely throughout the US. So I highly recommend, any female leaders, check it out. It's been, again, really, really helpful for me.
It sounds great, and I didn't know about it. I will put the link in the episode notes. I am not sure it's something I've heard of like this in this way in Europe, but it's like what you describe, like having this group and similar challenges, but also from another industry must be very enriching in the conversation, and really facilitated by a coach. I'm pretty sure it's like you learn a lot and grow a lot from this conversation.
100%. Yeah. And I think it's been really helpful because they have a lot of, tools and exercises too that allow you to kind of look at your day and how you're allocating your time. And it's really eye-opening when it comes to work-life balance, because you realize, although we're from different industries and different walks of life, we're all kind of going through the same thing. So, there's some comfort in knowing that you're not going through things alone, and really amazing tools to figure out how you can adjust your priorities to make sure that you are whole as an individual.
So we are reaching, unfortunately, the end of our conversation, and looking like forward a few years from now, what do you feel excited of, learning? And if you think maybe career or personal, that the things you'd like to learn or next, do you have thoughts already about this?
Yeah, I feel like our industry as a whole is going through a lot of transformations, and I'm super excited about that. I think the lines between the virtual world and the physical world are blurring. And so I'm really excited to kind of see how people approach that in new ways. I think, even going through COVID and like seeing how, Fortnite was doing like in-game concerts and things like that. There's so much opportunity in mobile gaming still to this day. And so I'm super excited about that. And, obviously coming back from leave just to be able to jump back into that and see, because this industry moves so fast. Who knows what's going to happen, in a couple of months, and what sort of new things people are going to be tackling, new, game genres and new marketing campaigns. And so that's what I'm particularly excited about, is just being able to kind of see how the industry continues to evolve and how we can adapt our own strategies to that.
By listening to you, I can feel you're very excited about this. And I think that's something I sense from our conversation today, this love for learning, trying different things and evolving. And games, I think, are definitely, having been there for some time now, seeing over different phases, we're, still on the journey. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thanks a lot, Vanessa, for sharing your personal story and all the things we discussed today. It was a great pleasure to have you today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Thanks for listening to this latest episode of the Rise and Play podcast. I am trying to grow a community of conscious leaders across the industry and beyond. So if you want to join this movement, please share the podcast with other conscious leaders, because we have so much more we can learn from each other. Also, please don't forget to follow the show so you don't miss out on future content. Every episode is packed with actionable insights that will help you improve your leadership skills now. And if you are interested in learning more on the topics that we discussed today, you can find more insights on riseandplay.io, and there you will also find my free masterclass on conscious leadership. So have a great week, and until the next time,